Good evening.
Good evening.
Moving through Revelation and Revelation 13, actually, tonight. I'll get down to that in a minute. But trying to go a little slow. Going to introduce some things tonight, things we spoke about before. If you look at Revelation 13, we begin to talk about the beast, the first and second beast that come up together, with the dragon giving their authority. And as we begin to look at that a little bit, we've talked a little about what they are and what they represent, but we need to probably refresh our memory a little bit about what's going on. Revelation 13 starts out with a dragon. We know that when it says dragon, it means Satan, right? We got that. Dragon means Satan, okay? Starts out in 13. He stood on the seashore, and I saw a beast coming out of the sea, having 10 horns and 7 heads, and on his horns were 10 diadems. In his head were blasphemous names. So a lot of numbers here. Talked about numbers. So what do you see about this beast without knowing anything about him? Well, one thing you see is that he's complete and he's powerful. 7 and 10, okay? The other thing you see is that the crowns here, whereas most crowns in the Bible are Stephanos in the Greek, which is a victor's crown, the crown like a Greek athlete would wear on their head. Only in Revelation do we see the word crown as diadem. Diadem is a kingly crown. It's like the crown that a king would wear, not a victor's crown, but it's a kingly crown. And only in Revelation in the Bible do we see this king crown. So that's part of the authority of this beast, saying that he has kings. 10 diadems. The beast which I saw in blasphemous names. We'll talk about that a little, especially when we get into 17, chapter 17. The beast I saw was like a leopard. His feet were like those of a bear. His mouth like the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power. Dragon means Satan. And his power and his throne, his great authority. So his power and his throne and his authority were because of Satan. I saw one of his heads if it had been slain. The fatal wound was healed, and the whole earth was amazed and followed after the beast. They worshiped the dragon because he gave authority to the beast. They worshiped the beast, saying, "Who is like the beast? Who is able to wage war with him?" Very powerful. There was given him a mouth speaking arrogant words, blasphemes, authority to act for 42 months. Remember that? Anytime we talk about 42, times and a half, 1,260 days, we're talking about God's people, generally persecution against God's people. And every time we see that, it's incomplete, means it's not going to last forever. Hope some of these terminologies and numbers are starting to kind of make sense as we go through this. So not going to last forever, but he has that authority for 42 months. He opened his mouth against God. It is given him to make war with the saints, to overcome them, and authority over every tribe and people and tongue and nation is given to him. All who dwell on the earth will worship him. Everyone whose name has not been written from the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb who has been slain. If anyone has an ear, let him hear. If anyone is destined for captivity, captivity he goes. If anyone kills a sword, with the sword he must be killed. Here is the perseverance and faith of the saints. And then there's a beast from the earth. That's the second beast. Then I saw another beast coming out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb and spoke as a dragon. Anytime we see dragon, it means Satan, so he spoke like Satan. Okay. He exercised all authority of the first beast in his presence. He makes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast. The first and second beast come up together, and the first and second beast go down together. They exist concurrently. The only purpose of the second beast is to make people worship the first beast. We'll talk about that, and we have talked about this. So that he makes fire come down to heaven to earth, presence of men. He deceives those who dwell on the earth because of the signs which is given to perform, killing those who dwell on the earth to make an image to the beast who had, and the wound and the sword has come to life. So he's going to make images. His job is to make them worship the first beast and to make images. So that's his job. If you get down to 15, the beast would even speak and cause as many who do not worship the image of the beast to be killed. So if they don't worship the image of the first beast, they would be killed. He causes all, the small, the great, the rich and the poor, the freemen and the slaves, to be given a mark on their right hand, on their forehead, and we talked about this. He provides that no one will be able to buy or to sell except the one who has the mark. So it's going to affect their ability to trade, their ability to work, and that's reality. We'll talk about that. Here is wisdom, let him understand and calculate the number of the beast, for the number that is man is number 666, and you've heard that number, and we'll talk about that a little bit too. So we got to know who the dragon and the two beasts are. We know who the dragon is. We've established that. Clearly says it's Satan, so we understand that. He's mentioned in chapter 12. The dragon, Revelation 12:9 to 12:2 state plainly the dragon is the old serpent. It's called the devil and Satan. So anytime we see dragon, we just put Satan. So we got that. I think you all got that. We got that. In the last verse of chapter 12, Satan goes to make war on those who keep God's command and hold the testimony of Jesus. John 13:1 sees the beast come out of the water. The beast makes war with the saints. He has 10 horns with a crown spread on 7 heads. He's made up of a lion, a bear, and a leopard. Now, that's not new, okay? The idea of the beast coming up, the lion, the bear, and the leopard, that really goes back into the book of Daniel. Daniel represents the kingdoms as the lion, the bear, and the leopard. And the Daniel, if we look at the image of Daniel, we don't have time to get into that. I'm not going to go over there. Take too much time. If we really look at the image of the statue in Daniel, if we remember that, it was talking about Nebuchadnezzar, it's talking about the Babylons, it's talking about the Medo-Persians, talking about Alexander the Great, the Greeks, and talking about the Romans. And those nations were represented by these animals. If you read Daniel, especially Daniel 7, if you want to look at that. And so they're brought back up here. So this beast, he encompasses all of those kingdoms of Daniel, which is true. Because every kingdom that came in succession assimilated into itself the kingdom previously. So the Babylonians were first. We know them because they carried off Judah to captivity. And then, of course, Darius, the Medo-Persians come in, took over the Babylonian Empire. It became the Medo-Persian Empire. Then Alexander the Great, most of you know him or know of him. Alexander the Great came in, took over everything, made it all Greek. And then after Alexander the Great, the Romans came in and made everything Roman. So the Romans absorbed all these animals, all these that are figurative of all these different kingdoms. So the first beast encompasses all of these previous kingdoms, and that goes right back to the book of Daniel, especially Daniel chapter 7. So this lion, bear, and a leopard, that's not anything new. Daniel 7, 4 beasts represent the 4 kingdoms: a lion, a bear, a leopard, and a beast with 10 horns. Babylonians, Medo-Persians, Greeks, Romans, okay? It appears the first beast is the Roman Empire. He blasphemes God. He makes war on the saints. He reigns over every tribe, people, language, and nation. Now, you and I, we read this with modern eyes, so we don't think, well, it's not every tribe, language, people, and nation, because there's a whole world that they didn't know about. But you're not looking at it through first century eyes. In first century eyes, Rome ruled over the known world. And that's what we're talking about. So they did rule over the world at that time. And the inhabitants of the earth worship the beast, which is true, because by this time we had emperor worship. That was beginning to become a thing. It was coming to existence, and that's what the second beast is going to be about. In Revelation 17, 9 through 10, it says 7 heads, 7 kings. We're going to talk about this some more, and I'm going to show you a little something that might help you with this. 7 kings, 5 will reign, 1 is reigning, 1 is yet to reign. Also 7 hills. Rome was in power when John wrote the book, right? And it is located on 7 hills. Daniel talks about 10 kings. Revelation talks about basically 8 kings. That's a little bit confusing. But Galbo, Otho, and Vitellis only reigned like 3 months between them all. They were basically non-existent. So I think that's why we don't see them in Revelation. And I don't know that you can line this up exactly, but Vespasian, Titus, and Domitian are the main, and Nero are the main emperors we talk about when we talk about first century Christianity. Nero was who was in power when, that's who executed Paul, who executed Peter. That was Nero, okay? Vespasian displaced Nero. It was Titus who would destroy Rome in 71 AD. That was Titus. Actually, it was at the end of Vespasian's reign. Titus was overtaking Rome, capturing Rome, And then Vespasius died, and Titus actually went back and took the title of emperor. So Titus is actually the one who sieged Jerusalem in 71 AD, who actually made Jerusalem collapse. And I think Revelation's after that. So I think he's the one that reigns, and Domitian will be the one yet to reign. We'll talk about that more when we get into Revelation 17. There's 7 hills in Rome. Got the chance to go to Rome. Rome is built on hills. Trust me, when you walk around Rome, you really understand that Rome was built on hills. And so we did a lot of walking. Matter of fact, I think I was the most tired I've ever been walking the day we went to Rome. So there's hills in Rome, located on 7 hills. The second beast comes up with the first one, goes down with the first one. So they're together. They exist together at the same time, same period of time. He exercised authority in the first beast. He speaks like a dragon. That's Satan. He only has one message, right? One mission, to set up images and to make people worship the first beast. He kills those who refuse to worship the beast. And he takes away their trade. Remember, it said if you got a mark, you can trade. If you don't, you can't. Well, at the time of the writing of Revelation, Christians were under that influence, and images were being set up in these cities to these Roman empires, the busts of the Caesars. Caesars, by that time, had determined themselves to be gods and to be worshipped as a god. And so you had to pinch incense or kiss the bust of Caesar in order to be a Roman citizen or pledge allegiance to Rome. Christians, of course, could not do that because you can't worship a graven image. You can't give worship to anyone but God. I mean, multiple reasons a Christian can't do that. So they didn't do that, and because of that, their livelihoods, their property was taken away, their jobs were taken away. They didn't have the mark, okay? Not a literal mark like anything in Revelation, not a literal mark, okay? But they couldn't do it because they didn't worship that first beast. So the second beast had that idea. So the first beast is Rome, and the second beast was the worship of emperors. I believe, and Satan's the dragon, so we understand that as we get into that. And so if we get into that idea of what these represent, and this makes sense because it applies these people the book was written to, those in those churches, 7 churches of Asia, it applies to them. And we begin to see the power of that beast. Rome was a powerful, powerful, powerful empire. Beyond a doubt. Everything that you read about in Revelation 13, if you look at Rome, it totally fits with who they were, what they were. They were an evil empire, essentially against Christians at this time. Of course, eventually that would change. But at this time, they were against Christians. That's going, like I said, underneath, that eventually is going to change under Constantine. But Constantine's 300 AD, and we're in the hundreds. So we got a long ways to go before Constantine comes into power and is going to relieve or take away that idea. So we're facing a time of persecution. We're in the interlude, right? 7 seals, 7 trumpets, 7 bowls. We got that. We've gone through 7 seals. We've gone through the trumpets, right? 6 of the trumpets, right? The 7th trumpet's going to open the bowl. We're in the interlude between the 6th and the 7th trumpet before the bowls are poured out. We're giving comfort to God's people, I think, in 12. In 13, we're setting the stage. This is who the enemy is. This is what's going on. It's this beast that comes up and this beast that follows him. And they're all under the authority of Satan. And this is the enemy. Now we've identified the enemy in the book of Revelation. And now we're going to see what we're going to do. And then we get to this number 666. Isn't that? You've seen it everywhere. Why do we try to take that literally? I just have to ask you that question. Everything else in this book, every number we say is figurative. Every number we say is a figurative representation. People have tried to put a name to this number. They call that, I don't know if I can say it, gematria, I think is how they put that, where they actually try to put a number to a letter and they try to say, well, this was Nero or this was Domitian or this was whoever or whoever it's going to be. I think it's fascinating. I was reading a book the other day by, I can't remember the guy's name now. Anyway, but he had the opportunity to look at an old codex of this, and actually in the codex it looks like the number might be 667 actually. So anyway, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? That's kind of fascinating. But so what is it? What's the number 666 mean? Well, we're talking about numbers all the time in this, right? We talked about 7 being complete. We talked about 10 being complete, power, authority, multiples of that, 12 being a significant number, 12 tribes of Israel, 12 apostles, 24 elders, multiple of 12. We talk about that number being complete. So we talk about 7 and 10 and 12 and multiples of that being completeness, 144,000, numbers like that being complete. And then we talked about the incomplete, imperfect numbers, right? Talked about the 1,260 days, 42 months, times and a half, how that's incomplete, not a full time, a third. The dragon swept a third of the stars with his tail, a third of the water, a third of the land. How that wasn't complete devastation, that was partial, because a third is partial. 6 is a bad number, right? 6 is 1 less than 7. 6 is a multiple of 3. So 6 is an incomplete, imperfect number. So what is his number? 666, very imperfect, very incomplete. What does it suggest? It suggests total incompleteness, right? I don't think you can take that number and say we need to be looking for that number. One time I did a bill 15, 20 years ago, I don't know, at the shop, and the price came up $666. They refused to pay it. So I made it $667. So it was all right. But they really would not write the check for $666. They had a stigma with that number. They would not write that check for $666. But once again, why do we take all these numbers, all this stuff we say this is figurative, this is representative, and then all of a sudden we get down to 666, well, that's got to be literal. Well, no, it doesn't. You can't. I don't think you can pick and choose in the book of Revelation what you want to be a literal thing, what you want to be a figurative thing. Once again, what does it say? What does it mean? What are we looking for? What's the representation? Well, if 7's complete, then 6 is incomplete. Let's leave it at that, right? And at the end of 13, when he gets into that, he says that the number of it is 666. So why are we trying to assign that to a person? We can't. You can't make that. There's no way you can make that call. So we have to just take it for what it says. Him who has understanding, calculate the number of the beast. Well, we said who the beast was, didn't we? The beast is Rome. That's pretty straightforward, right? We know who the beast is. Let's calculate his number, right? The number is that of a man, and his number is 666. Well, are we talking about an emperor? Maybe. Are we talking about Rome in general? Maybe. Does it matter? Not really. It just means it's a total incompleteness, and we need to leave it at that because that's as far as we can take that number. So once again, numerology and Revelation means something, but you can't take some of these numbers, say, well, 144,000 is figurative of God's people, but those 666, that's got to be a number. We got to take that number. That has to mean something. Let's take it literal. We can't do that. Just as much as that 144,000 or that 24 or that 12 is a figurative representation or 7 is a figurative representation, we have to look at the 666 the same way. It's a figurative representation of total incompleteness. That's as far as we know. And it represents the beast or the number of a man. An emperor, maybe. I don't know. They probably knew better than you and me know what that meant. But let's not stress over that because obviously that's what it means. And we have to take it. We have to take it in that respect. So 13, 12, we're comforting. 13, we're setting the stage for what's to come. Who the beasts are, who the enemy is, the dragon, the beast, the first beast, the second beast. Because we're going to see them defeated. We're going to see them thrown into the lake of fire. They're going to be cast down. So now we're bringing them up, introducing them. This is who they are. This is what they are. But then as we start to pull out the bowls, and we get to 17, we get past 18, we're going to see them defeated and thrown into the lake. So we're just setting this, we're setting the plot, if you want to look at it that way now. And then in 14, we're going to start bringing in God's people, and we're going to start setting it a little more because there's a pretty good interlude between the 6th trumpet and the 7th trumpet and the pouring out of the bowls, and that's what we're in the middle of now. Thanks for your time this evening. If there's any way that we can help you, let it be known while we stand.